The iron storm had been raging for 3 days when Grant heard the crash. He stood at his kitchen window, watching purple lightning tear across the sky of Haven 7, and he felt the ground shake beneath his feet. Something big had come down on his property. Common sense told him to stay inside. The winds could knock a grown man off his feet, and the electrical discharge could kill him in seconds. His neighbors would call him a fool for even thinking about going out there, but had been a medic during the Outer Rim conflicts, and old habits died hard. Someone might need help. He pulled on his storm gear and pushed through the door into the howling wind. The walk to the crash site took 20 minutes through conditions that should have taken 5. When he finally reached the smoking wreckage, his heart sank. It was a fighter craft, sleek and angular in a design he recognized immediately. They were warriors. They had been enemies of humanity for 3 generations, fighting over territory and resources in the outer systems. They viewed humans as weak, chaotic, and beneath their notice. A warrior would sooner die than accept help from a human. Should have walked away. He knew this. Every logical thought in his head screamed at him to turn around and go home. But then he saw movement through the shattered cockpit glass, and his feet carried him forward before his brain could stop them. The pilot was female, tall and lean with pale blue skin and ridges running along her temples. Her uniform marked her as high-ranking, decorated with symbols did not recognize. She was bleeding from a wound in her side, another across her shoulder, and her breathing came in shallow gasps. Worst of all, he could see her ribs through her torn uniform. She was starving. He knew about biology from his medic training. Their enhanced physiology required massive amounts of food to maintain. A wounded who could not eat would die within days, their body consuming itself to fuel healing that would never complete. Made his decision. He reached into the cockpit and carefully extracted the unconscious warrior, lifting her over his shoulder in a rescue carry. She weighed more than a human woman. Her size wood, dense muscle, and bone structure evolved for a higher gravity world, but was strong from years of farm work, and he managed. The walk back to his farmhouse nearly killed him. The wind fought him every step, and twice he had to shield the alien woman with his body when lightning struck nearby. By the time he kicked open his front door and stumbled inside, his arms were shaking and his lungs burned. He laid her on his bed and went to work. The wound in her side was deep but clean, and he closed it with surgical glue from his. The shoulder wound required stitches, which he applied with steady hands despite his exhaustion. Then came the harder problem. She needed food, lots of it. Opened his storage and started calculating. He had enough protein supplies to last himself 3 months. If he fed this warrior what her body needed to heal, that would drop to maybe 3 weeks. The supply ship would not come for 2 months. He started cooking anyway. Over the next several hours, he prepared every high-protein meal he could manage. Meat from his freezer, beans from his stores, eggs from his small flock of modified chickens. He blended it into forms that an unconscious person could swallow, and he fed her slowly, carefully, making sure she did not choke. She woke briefly around midnight. Her eyes opened, and found himself staring into amber irises with vertical pupils. Predator eyes. She looked at him with an expression he could not read, her gaze moving from his face to the bandages on her body to the empty food containers beside the bed. Her mouth moved, and words came out in a language he did not speak, but his translator chip caught them and rendered them into something he could understand. Dead acknowledged. Then her eyes closed, and she was unconscious again. Sat back in his chair and watched her sleep. He had heard about blood debts in his cultural training. They took them seriously, more seriously than almost anything else in their society. Saving a life created a bond that the rescued was obligated to honor, sometimes for years, sometimes for life. He had not saved her for a debt. He had saved her because she was hurt and hungry and alone, and leaving her to die was not something he could do. It was not complicated. You help people who needed help. That was what his mother had taught him, and it was the code he had lived by through the war and after. The storm continued to rage outside. According to his weather systems, it would last at least another 2 days. That meant no communication with the outside world, no way to report what had happened, no way for anyone to come looking for the crashed fighter or its pilot. For now, it was just a wounded warrior who probably wanted to kill him. He made himself comfortable in the chair beside the bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new problems. The alien woman would wake up, and she would have questions. She might be hostile. She might try to hurt him despite her wounds. She might simply refuse to eat food prepared by a human and choose death over the shame of accepting help. But tomorrow was tomorrow. Tonight would rest, and he would make sure his patient did not die in her sleep. When morning came, gray light filtering through windows still streaked with storm debris, woke to find the alien woman watching him. She had not moved from the bed, but her eyes were open and alert, tracking his every breath. "You are the human who saved me," she said. Her voice was rough, damaged by dehydration and disuse, but her pronunciation was perfect. She had a translator, too. "I am Sid. My name is Grant. I am a farmer." A farmer. She said the word like she was testing it, trying to understand how it applied to the man in front of her. "I am Eth, fleet commander of the 7th Pursuit Wing. You may call me." "Nice to meet you. Are you hungry?" She stared at him for a long moment, and something shifted in her amber eyes. Confusion, maybe, or the beginning of curiosity. "Yes," she finally said, "I am hungry." Stood and walked toward his kitchen. Behind him, he heard settle back against the pillows, still watching him with those predator eyes. She did not know what to make of him. That was fine. He did not know what to make of her either. But hungry was hungry, and food was food, and everything else could wait until after breakfast. 3 days passed and grew stronger with each meal placed before her. The storm still raged outside, trapping them together in the small farmhouse, and watched his food supplies shrink with every passing hour. He did not complain. He simply adjusted his own portion smaller and made sure she had enough. She noticed everything. "You are eating less than you need," she said on the third evening, watching him push food around his plate. "You give me more than you keep for yourself." Shrugged, "You need it more. Your body is still healing." "My body is healing because you feed it. If you weaken yourself, you become vulnerable. I could kill you easily in your sleep." She said this calmly, as if discussing the weather. "Are you planning to kill me in your sleep?" "No." "Then I do not see the problem." Set down her fork and studied him with those amber eyes. "I do not understand you, Grant. Among my people, resources are power. One does not share power with strangers, especially not with enemies. Humans and have been at war for generations. I am your enemy. Why do you help me?" Thought about the question for a moment before answering. "Where I come from, you feed the hungry, you help the hurt. That is just what you do. It is not complicated." "Everything is complicated. There are always motives, always calculations. What do you want from me?" "Nothing." "That is impossible. Everyone wants something." Smiled and stood to clear the dishes. "The blood debt you mentioned when you woke up, you said it was acknowledged. Does that mean you owe me something?" His expression shifted, becoming guarded. "Yes, a blood debt is sacred among my people. You saved my life. I am obligated to repay that debt, whatever form you demand. Service, labor, even my life if you require it." "Okay," said, "then the debt is paid." "What?" "You do not have to do anything. The debt is paid. Consider it settled." Stood from her chair so fast she knocked it over. Her wounds had healed enough that she could move again, though could see the effort it cost her. "You cannot do that. A blood debt must be honored. It must be fulfilled through action, through sacrifice. You cannot simply dismiss it." "I just did." "Why?" The question came out almost desperate, as if his answer mattered more than he could understand. Turned from the sink and faced her. "Because you do not owe me anything. I did not save you to gain something. I saved you because you needed saving. That is enough for me." Stood there breathing hard, her hands clenched at her sides. Could see her struggling with something, some internal battle he could not follow. Finally, she spoke again. "Among my people, owing a debt to a human would be shameful. We are taught that humans are weak, emotional, driven by chaos and impulse. Accepting help from a human is seen as the lowest form of degradation." She paused. "But you have shown me nothing but kindness. You have given me your food, your bed, your care, and you ask nothing in return. I do not know how to process this." "Maybe you were taught wrong," said gently. "Maybe humans are different than what your people believe." "Maybe," picked up her chair and sat down again. "Tell me about yourself, Grant. Tell me why a human chooses to live alone on a frontier world growing food in the dirt." So told her. He talked about the war, about his years as a medic treating soldiers on both sides of the conflict. He talked about the things he had seen, the wounds he could not heal, the lives he could not save. He talked about coming to Haven 7 to find peace, to build something instead of watching things be destroyed. listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You healed enemy soldiers," she finally said. "Soldiers. Sometimes, a wounded person is just a wounded person. The uniform does not matter. My people would call that treason. My people called it compassion." Shook her head slowly. "You are a strange human, Grant. I have met many of your kind over the years. Soldiers, diplomats, prisoners. None of them were like you. I am just a farmer." "No, you are something else. I have not yet figured out what." The storm broke on the fifth day. Woke to silence and found standing at the window, watching the clouds retreat across the purple sky of Haven 7. Her ship's emergency beacon would work now. Rescue could come within hours. "You could call for help," said, joining her at the window. "Your people would come for you." "Yes, they would. You should probably go. I'm sure your fleet is worried about you." Turned to look at him. In the morning light, he could see how much she had healed. The wound in her side was just a scar now, her shoulder moving freely again. Her body had used the food he provided to repair itself with remarkable speed. "Your farm," she said. "The storm damaged it badly." Looked out at his property and sighed. She was right. Fences were down, crops were destroyed, and his equipment shed had partially collapsed. It would take weeks to repair everything, and he would have to do it alone. "I will manage," he said. "I always do." "I could help." Blinked. "What?" "I could stay, help you repair the damage. Consider it partial payment toward the debt you refuse to accept." "You do not have to." "I know I do not have to. I want to." She hesitated, and for the first time since he had met her, saw uncertainty in her eyes. "Unless you want me to leave." Thought about it. He thought about the danger of harboring a warrior, the questions his neighbors would ask, the complications it would bring to his quiet life. Then he thought about the past 5 days, the conversations they had shared, the glimpses of a person behind the warrior mask. "No," he said, "I do not want you to leave. Stay as long as you like." Nodded once sharply and turned back to the window, but caught the small movement at the corner of her mouth, almost like a smile. "Then I will stay," she said, "for now." For now was enough. Everything else could wait. Weeks turned into a month and remained on the farm. Her rescue never came. When she finally checked her emergency beacon, she discovered it had been destroyed in the crash. Her fleet believed her dead, and she made no effort to correct that belief. When asked why, she gave him an answer that he did not fully understand. "I am observing human agricultural methods for strategic intelligence," she said, not meeting his eyes. "It is important military information." Did not challenge the obvious excuse. He simply handed her a shovel and showed her how to repair the irrigation channels. Working beside him every day, began to see the world differently. She had been trained since childhood to view humans as inferior, as chaotic creatures driven by emotion rather than logic, but was nothing like the humans she had been taught to despise. He worked methodically, planned carefully, and showed patience she had rarely seen even among her own people. One morning, she watched him spend 4 hours repairing a section of crops that would feed perhaps 3 families. When he finished, sweating and covered in dirt, she asked him why he had bothered. "3 families is 3 families," he said. "Every meal matters to someone. But the effort you spent, the time, you could have used those resources elsewhere on something more profitable." "Profit is not why I farm. I farm because people need to eat. Making sure they have food is its own reward." She did not understand, but she filed the information away, adding it to the growing collection of observations that were slowly changing her view of humanity. The supply run changed things further. Needed parts for his water pump, and insisted on accompanying him to the small trading post that served the frontier settlements. She wore a hooded cloak to hide her features, but her height and the way she moved still drew attention. At the trading post, a human child bumped into while running between stalls. The boy fell hard and started crying, and his mother rushed over with panic in her eyes. Knelt down, checked the child for injuries, and pulled a small piece of candy from his pocket. "No harm done," he told the mother with a warm smile. "He is a fast runner, that is a good quality." The child stopped crying, took the candy, and ran off again. His mother thanked with tears in her eyes and hurried after her son. It was a small moment, barely worth noticing, but could not look away. "You carry candy in your pocket," she said as they walked toward the parts dealer, "in case you meet children." "In case I meet anyone who needs a small kindness." Children just tend to need it more obviously. That night, lay awake in the small room had prepared for her and tried to understand what she was feeling. Among her people, kindness was weakness. Resources spent on others were resources lost to yourself. The strong survived and the weak perished, and compassion only delayed the natural order. But was not weak. She had seen him work from dawn to dusk without complaint. She had seen him lift equipment that should have been too heavy for his human frame. She had seen him face down a malfunctioning piece of machinery that could have killed him, calm and focused until the danger passed. His kindness was not weakness, it was something else, something her people had no word for. The bandits arrived on a cold morning when frost covered the crops. There were 4 of them, rough men with weapons and hungry eyes, and they clearly expected an easy target. A lone farmer on the frontier, no protection, no backup. They did not expect. She moved before could react, her warrior training taking over in a blur of precise violence. The first man lost his weapon before he knew she was there. The second caught a strike to his throat that dropped him gasping. The third and fourth tried to run, but she was faster, taking them down with efficient strikes that left them alive but incapable of fighting. When it was over, she turned to with blood on her claws and a question in her eyes. "What do you want done with them?" Looked at the 4 men groaning on the ground. Any of them could have killed him. Any of them would have taken everything he had and left him with nothing. He had every right to demand harsh punishment. "Help me get them inside," he said. Stared at him. "What?" "They are hurt. I need to treat their wounds before they get infected." "They came here to harm you, to steal from you, perhaps worse." "I know. And you wish to help them." "I wish to make sure they do not die. What happens after that is a separate question." Helped him carry the bandits inside, still not understanding. She watched as cleaned and bandaged their wounds, gave them water, let them rest until they could move again. When they were recovered enough to travel, he gave them food and sent them on their way. "If you come back, things will go differently," he told them. "But everyone deserves one chance." The bandits left, confused and ashamed in equal measure, waited until they were gone before confronting. Why show mercy to those who would have hurt you?" Sat down heavily, suddenly looking tired. Broken people do broken things. Those men did not become bandits because they wanted to. Something in their lives went wrong. Killing them would not fix what broke them. Maybe kindness will. And if it does not, if they come back, then I will deal with that when it happens. But I would rather take the chance than become someone who kills without trying something else first. Sat down across from him, studying his face in the dim light. "You are the strangest human I have ever met, Grant." "So you keep telling me." "I mean it as a compliment." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the damaged farm. Realized she was not thinking about her fleet or her duty or the life she had left behind. She was thinking about this small farmhouse, this strange human, and the feeling of peace she had found in the most unlikely place. She said quietly, "Will you teach me to cook?" He looked surprised. "You want to learn?" "I want to understand. Your cooking is different from military rations. It is prepared with care, with attention. I want to know why it matters." Smiled and stood, offering her his hand. "Come on, I will show you how to make soup." Took his hand and followed him to the kitchen. She was a warrior, trained for battle and bloodshed, and here she was learning to make soup from a human farmer. Her people would be horrified. She found that she did not care. The warship appeared in the sky without warning, a massive vessel that blocked out the morning sun. Saw it first and went completely still, her face draining of expression in a way had never seen before. "They found me," she said quietly. "My people know I am alive." Within an hour, a shuttle descended from the warship and landed in his front field, crushing a section of crops he had spent weeks replanting. A single warrior emerged, tall and in radiating authority. Recognized him immediately. She said, "My former second in command." Approached with measured steps, his eyes moving from to and back again. When he spoke, his voice was cold with barely contained disgust. "Fleet Commander Eth, we mourned you as dead. We honored your memory with the rites of falling. And now I find you here, living on a human farm, dressed in human clothing, eating human food." He spat on the ground. "You have brought shame upon your bloodline and your fleet." "I can explain." "There is nothing to explain. I know about the blood debt. I know you were injured and this human saved your life. But a debt should be honored through service, through combat, through worthy sacrifice, not through this degrading cohabitation. He turned to, looking at him like something he had found on the bottom of his boot. You, human, what did you do to her? I fed her, said calmly. She was hungry. You corrupted her. You took one of our finest warriors and turned her into a farmer's companion. This is worse than killing her. I did not take anything, chose to stay. His hand moved to the weapon at his side. You will address the fleet commander by her proper title, human, and she did not choose. You manipulated her through the blood debt, trapped her here with your false kindness. But I have come to correct this error. Eth will return with me to face judgment, and you will learn what happens to humans who steal warriors. Took a step forward. It was not a threatening move, but his hand tightened on his weapon anyway. Is free to leave if she wishes, said. I have never forced her to stay. I have never asked anything of her. If she wants to go with you, I will not stop her. He turned to face directly. What do you want? Whatever you choose, I will support it. Stood frozen between the two males, her warrior training warring with something newer and less familiar. She looked at, seeing the fleet she had served for decades, the culture she had been born into, the honor and tradition that defined her people. Then she looked at, seeing a small farmhouse, quiet mornings, simple meals, and a human who had never asked for anything except her company. I will not go, she said. Her voice was steady but could see her hands trembling. The blood debt is mine to honor as I choose, and I choose to remain here. Drew his weapon. Then you leave me no choice. I will take you by force if necessary. The council demands your return. Stepped between them. It was the most foolish thing he had ever done. Was larger, stronger, trained from birth for combat. Was a farmer who had not held a weapon in years. The fight would last seconds at most, and it would end with dead on the ground. But he stepped forward anyway. You can take her if she wishes to go, said, his voice calm despite his racing heart. But you will not force her, not while I am standing here. Stared at him with something approaching disbelief. You would die for her, a warrior, your enemy. She is not my enemy, she is my friend, and yes, I would die before I let you take her against her will. You would lose, you know this. Probably, but some things are worth losing for. The standoff stretched for what felt like hours. His weapon remained pointed at his chest, his finger on the trigger. Stood his ground, unarmed and unafraid, meeting the alien warrior's gaze without flinching. Then moved. She crossed the distance between them and stood beside, not in front of him, protecting him, not behind him, being protected, beside him, equal partner. If you kill him, you will have to kill me too, she said. I will not return to people who would murder a good man for the crime of showing kindness. His weapon wavered. Think about what you are doing. You are choosing this human over your entire culture, over your honor, over everything we taught you to value. Perhaps what you taught me was wrong, said. Perhaps there is more to strength than violence and more to honor than tradition. This human showed me that. I will not abandon him. The silence that followed was heavy with significance. Finally, lowered his weapon and stepped back. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was quieter when he spoke. The council will hear of this. There will be consequences. You have made a powerful enemy today, both of you. I know, said, but some things are worth the cost. Turned and walked back to his shuttle without another word. The engines fired and the craft rose into the sky, disappearing into the waiting warship above. Moments later, the warship itself jumped away, leaving only empty sky behind. Let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Then she did something she had never done before. She reached out and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. Among her people, that gesture was reserved only for bonded mates. Did not know this, but he sensed its importance from the way her hand trembled in his. You made a powerful enemy today, she said softly. Will not forget this. I know. The council may declare me exile. They may strip me of my rank, my honor, my name. I may never be able to return to my people. I know that too. And still you stood there, still you risked your life for me. Squeezed her hand gently. You are worth it, whatever comes, you are worth it. She looked at him with those amber eyes, and for the first time he saw tears gathering at the corners. Were not supposed to cry. They were warriors, bred for strength and stoicism. But cried anyway, silent tears rolling down her blue cheeks as she stood in the ruined field and held hands with the human who had changed everything. I do not know what happens next, she whispered. Neither do I, admitted, but we will figure it out together. Together, it was a simple word, but it meant everything. 6 months had passed since visit, and the consequences had feared came one by one. The council declared her an exile, stripping away her rank and her honor. Her name was spoken as a curse among her people, the warrior who had abandoned her kind for a human farmer. Rumors spread across the galaxy about the human who had stolen a fleet commander, and human relations grew tenser with each passing week. And endured it all together. The threats from passing ships, the suspicious looks from human colonists who feared her presence, the isolation that came from being caught between two peoples. They worked the farm, they cooked meals, they sat on the porch and watched the stars come out each night. It was not an easy life, but it was their life, and neither of them would trade it. Then the plague came. It started in the outer settlements, a virus that spread quickly and killed slowly. Both humans and could catch it, but the alien biology suffered far worse. For every human who fell sick, 5 died. Medical supplies existed, treatments that could save lives, but they were rare and expensive and heavily guarded. The nearest settlement was 3 days' travel from Haven 7. Heard the news from a passing trader, and he watched his face go pale as she listened to the death toll. "How many?" she asked quietly. "Hundreds so far, maybe thousands. The settlement has no medicine and no human outpost will trade with them. They are dying alone." Did not hesitate. He walked to his storage, pulled out every medical supply he had, and started loading them onto his cargo hauler. Found him there an hour later, checking fuel levels and plotting a course. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Going to help. That settlement is full of who hate humans. They would kill you before you reach the gates. Then they will kill me. But I am not going to sit here and let people die when I have medicine that could save them." Stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she walked to the hauler and climbed into the passenger seat. "If you think I am letting you go alone, you are as foolish as said. You are exiled if they catch you. Then they catch me. Some things are worth the cost. You taught me that." They traveled for 3 days through hostile territory, avoiding patrols and checkpoints, pushing the old hauler to its limits. When they finally reached the settlement, they found chaos. Bodies lay in the streets, the healthy too few to care for the sick. The proud warrior race had been brought to its knees by an enemy too small to see. Found them within minutes of their arrival. He looked terrible, gaunt and gray, his movements slow and pained. The plague had reached him too. "You," he rasped when he saw, "why are you here?" "I brought medicine, enough to treat several hundred patients if we work quickly." Stared at him with fever-bright eyes. "This is a trick, a human trap." "It is not a trap, it is help. Take it or leave it, but decide quickly. People are dying." Stepped forward, facing her former second-in-command. "I know you hate me. I know you think I betrayed our people. But this human traveled 3 days through enemy territory to save lives. Whatever you believe about him, about me, this is not the moment for pride." The standoff lasted only seconds, was too weak to fight, too desperate to refuse. He stepped aside and let them pass. What followed was the longest week of his life. He worked alongside from dawn to midnight, treating patients, distributing medicine, teaching the healthy how to care for their sick. His hands bled from constant work. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. But every life saved made it worth it. On the 5th day, collapsed. Found him in his quarters, unconscious and burning with fever. The plague had finally overwhelmed his resistance. Stood in the doorway watching as began treatment. "You could let him die. No one would blame you. He threatened to kill you." "I could," agreed, "but I will not." "Why?" Looked up from his patient, meeting his eyes. "Because I do not decide who deserves to live based on how they treated me. I decide based on who needs help, and right now he needs help." Survived. When he woke 3 days later, weak but recovering, the first thing he saw was checking his vital signs. The human who should have been his enemy, who had every reason to want him dead, had saved his life. "Why?" whispered. It was the same question had asked so many months ago, on a stormy night in a farmhouse far away. Gave him the same answer. "You feed the hungry, you heal the sick, you help those in need, it is not complicated." When the plague finally subsided, called for an emergency broadcast to the council. He stood before the camera, still weak, still recovering, and spoke words that would change his society forever. "I was wrong," he said. "We were all wrong. I have seen the truth of humans, not the chaos and weakness we were taught to fear, but a strength that flows from connection rather than conquest. This human risked his life to save people who hated him. He healed warriors who would have killed him. He showed us what real strength looks like. He paused, gathering himself. I recommend that the Council reconsider its stance on humanity, and I formally request that the exile of Eth be lifted. She saw what we could not. She deserves honor, not shame. The Council did not respond immediately. These things took time, but the first cracks had appeared in generations of hatred, and knew that cracks could grow into openings if given enough time. 1 year later, and stood before a gathering of humans and in the largest hall on Haven 7. It was the first formal bonding ceremony between the two species, and representatives from both peoples had traveled far to witness it. Spoke his vows in his language and spoke hers in the tongue of her people. Then they exchanged vows in each other's languages, words they had spent months learning, symbols of the bridge they had built between their cultures. When the ceremony ended and they stood as bonded mates, leaned close and whispered in his ear. I fell from the stars broken and alone. You fed me when I was hungry, healed me when I was wounded, and taught me that kindness was not weakness. I thought I survived that crash by luck. Now I know I was found by the one human in the galaxy stubborn enough to never give up on me. Smiled and pulled her close. I am just a farmer. I do what farmers do. I plant seeds and wait for them to grow. And what seed did you plant in me? Hope, he said. Hope that two peoples who have been enemies for generations can learn to be something better. Hope that love can bridge any distance. Hope that the future can be different from the past. Kissed him then in front of both their peoples, a declaration that could not be mistaken. When she pulled back, there were tears in her amber eyes again, but this time they were tears of joy. I love you, Grant. I love you too, now and always. Outside the hall, humans and mingled together, sharing food and drinks and stories. It was not peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. A single farmer had fed a hungry warrior, and from that simple act of kindness, a new future was slowly being born. She had fallen from the stars broken and alone. She rose from his table whole, and she never left.